All right. Well, good morning. Welcome to our morning devotions. I had to reboot my computer this morning, but just good to see everybody. Welcome on this Monday, June 20, what is it, June 23rd? Yep. So just good to see everybody this morning. We're in First Kings or Second Kings 15, and I posted 19 through 29, which have to deal with the Assyrians now, their incursions into the north. And I mentioned that earlier that this was going to happen. But this chapter, it has 38 verses, and I'm looking at this in a more of a topical way, just to show the decline of the north. In this passage of scripture, and it's in the title, there are four assassinations. Four assassinations. We see the Assyrians' oppression in two passages of scripture here, and basically we're just looking at the overall decline of Israel. That's what we're seeing here, and it's all kind of just packed into chapter 15 of Second Kings. So just some of the highlights that we want to note for the devotions this morning. The first we want to note here is I'm just going to mention it here, but Amaziah dies as a leper. He's a king in Judah, but the emphasis of most of this is upon the north and Israel. So the first assassination here is in verse 10, where we have in Shallum, the son of Jabesh conspired against him. That is, he conspired against Zechariah. He is the son of Jeroboam. So Shallum assassinates Zechariah. It says in verse 10, and Shallum, the son of Jabesh, conspired against him and smote him before the people. The issue here before the people is that they had such disregard for Shallum or for Zechariah, that he was killed publicly before the people. It was an open and public assassination, and the commentators all have something, similar to say about this. Either that he was just held in such disdain that his assassination really didn't mean anything. It's interesting to hear that Zechariah only reigned for 6 months. All right, so what we have then is Shallum. He is now going to come to the throne in the north. And then you come to verse 14. It said, for Menahem, the son of Gadai, went up from Tirzah and came to Samaria and smote Shallum, the son of Jabesh, in Samaria and slew him and reigned in his stead. So that's the second assassination. It tells us here in verse 13 that Shallum reigned 1 month, and he reigned a full month in Samaria. So those two guys didn't last very long. So there's a second assassination, and I'm in verse 14. Then you come down to verse 25, and you have Pekah. He is going to assassinate Mahanaim, and it tells us this. But Pekah, the son of Remaliah, a captain of his, that is one of his military commanders, conspired against him and smote him in Samaria in the palace of the king's house, with Argob and Ariel, and with him 50 men of the Gileadites, and he killed him and reigned in his stead. So Pekah takes over from Menahem, and he reigns, 10 years? So there's the third assassination. Then you come down here to verse 30, and Hoshea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah, the son of Remaliah, and smote him and slew him and reigned in his stead in the 20th year of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, which is up down in the south. So in this passage of scripture, we have within 30 years a little over, four assassinations. So we're just talking about instability in the north. So that's just the overarching issue here. There's no stability. All of these kings are wicked kings. They all do that which is evil in the sight of the Lord. And we're coming down to the end of all of this. And then we're seeing even now these incursions of Assyria into Israel. We see the first incursion under Menahem in verse 19. It says, and then Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul. Now listen to this. Before I get into this, the Assyrian army is more than anything in Judah, Israel, or Syria has ever seen. so far we've seen Moab and Edom and Israel and Syria and Judah, and they're all at different times fighting with one another. These armies in that part of the country are no match whatsoever for what's coming out of Mesopotamia, out of the Euphrates River Valley. All right, nothing like that. Babylon and Assyria are these mighty military forces against which these nations in further west, in where Israel is and Judah, cannot stand against these armies. They think that these kings think that they're big within their little sphere of influence. They are no military match against what's coming out of the east, out of Assyria, and later out of Babylon. And the only way that you can win the victory because of this overwhelming power of these eastern armies is if God intervenes, which he's going to. I mean, he intervenes at times. But here, Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver. See, they're not going to destroy them because they understand these nations can produce an income, or they can be taxed, or they can just be threatened for this resource, and so that's good for them. So you just let them go, and they'll just take their money, and that's what's happening here until you see later what happens under Pekah, all right, which is getting down to the end. It's not right at the end, but it's very close, and we're getting the impression of what Assyria is going to do to Samaria. It said, and Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand. And Menahem exacted the money of Israel. So he doesn't have this, so he's going to tax Israel. Even all the mighty men of wealth, of each man 50 shekels of silver, to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and stayed not there in the land. So we could get rid of Pul here because we bought him off. All right, that's what we see here in this passage of Scripture. He taxes everybody, goes all to the rich guys. He says the Assyrians are going to destroy us unless we can come up with this amount of money, and so he taxes the rich guys, anybody that has resources. Pul accepts it and heads back to Assyria, a rich man. Later on here, it tells us in the days of Pekah, all right, which are going to be about 10 years later, roughly. In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, King Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria. Here's our first mention of Tiglath-Pileser, who is going to be a renowned Assyrian general. All right, powerful powerhouse, and here he's the king. Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and took Ijon and Abel Beth-Macab and Jonah and Kadesh and Hazor and Gilead and Galilee and all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria. There you have it for the first time, the fulfillment of what Moses said in writing the Pentateuch in regards to what would happen if they departed from worshiping Jehovah. All right, this is what you have now. Now they are actually taking the people out of the land. Now, it's interesting here, and this is just a little sidebar, that Babylon, when we see what happens in the south, when Babylon takes over the south and goes into Judah, they take people out and bring them to Babylon, and then they train them to be Babylonians. They take the best of nations that they conquer, bring them back home, change their names, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or all their Babylonian names, and they change all of that, and then they train them in the Babylonian culture. Same thing with Daniel, he's going to be a president in the political structure there, Babylon, and then in Persia. So they bring them into the nation, and they're assimilated. All right, and then what happened? I'll just jump way ahead, because Babylon is advanced in every way, and they've been living there. They're going to be living there for 70 years. And in the meantime, after they've been taken out of the land of Judah, what's happened in Jerusalem is it's just barren land over there. It's overrun by brigands and criminals, and animals have taken over. The temple's destroyed. The walls broken down. That is why when Ezra goes back to rebuild the temple and Nehemiah goes back to rebuild the wall, that nobody goes. Hardly anybody goes back because they're comfortable having assimilated into the Babylonian culture. All right, that's how Babylon does it. That's going to be later. That's not what Assyria does. Assyria is not one to do that. What they do is they relocate people. So the people that are taken here captive, they will move into another area, another region, another country that they've taken. So your neighbor, this is how the Assyrians did it, and they're really genius. So they would take somebody that speaks Hebrew and they move them in next to somebody that speaks another language. So there's no common element when it comes to religion, philosophy, language, background. Nobody has any similarities. So it's hard to make connecting ties to rebel against the government. So that's what you're seeing here with the Assyrians. They're beginning this taking people out of the land, and at the same time, we're going to see later that they bring people into the land as well from other nations that they've conquered. And that is one way that you get what we now call as Samaria. Samaria. When Christ is on the scene, there's Samaria. There is there's Judah in the south, there is Israel in the north, and there's Samaria in between, who is a combination of those Israelis that married Gentiles that had been brought into the land. That's the idea. That's why they're called Samaritans, and Samaritans are looked down upon because they're not thoroughly Israeli, especially with the Pharisees there and the endless genealogies. I mean, track back as far as you can go. You better be able to track yourself back to Abraham, or they might find some reason to say you're not a Jew. Anyway, that's what happens. So what we're looking at here is they carried them captive to Assyria. This is the beginning of this. And it's just horrible. And you see a whole tribe is taken here. Naphtali is taken, all of Galilee. And we know about Galilee, right? I mean, Nazareth and that region up there around Galilee, it takes all of that. Gilead. Anyway, the point is the Assyrians come in, and there's no way anybody in the north can stop them. This is by the will of God because of the wickedness that they have done by accepting the sins of Jeroboam. I said back when Jeroboam brought in the golden calves that when that happened, they were setting themselves on a national trajectory for ruin. And here it is. The promise of God, after so many years, is now beginning to unfold before us here under the reign of Pekah. And there's not that many more kings to go. Hang on a second. I jotted them all down here just a minute ago. Let me see, after Pekah, what do we get? How far back do I have to go? Here we go. Yeah, after Pekah, there's only one other. Hoshea. We're here. When we reference Hoshea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah. That's the last king right there before the Assyrian captivity and when they go into Persia. I mean, when they go into Samaria, there's the siege of Samaria, and it's the end of Israel. Is right here. I mean, there's going to be more said, but that's it. You got Pekah and Hoshea, and that's the end. So let me look. Let me see what else we have here. So they go into Syria, and then Hoshea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah and smote him and slew him. That's the last of the assassinations here. Now, in each of these kings in Israel, none of them are good guys. They all do that which is wicked in the eyes of the Lord. Let me see. What else can I mention here? I just wanted to see. No, that's about it. No, that's pretty good. I mean, it's brief. It's brief because there's nothing really redeeming here. Okay, it's one assassination on top of another at the end. The decline of Israel is conspicuous. I mean, things are not going well in Judah either, but compared to Israel, Judah's doing great. All right, and the Assyrians at this point have not yet found their way down to Judah, but they're going to. They're going to. And then we're going to see some of the ways by the hand of God that the Assyrians are defeated because it wasn't time for Judah to yet be taken into captivity. But this is just a transitional passage of Scripture where we see the nation in the north, because of their idolatry, There's just one assassination on top of another. We're coming down to the last king in the north. Assyria is going to, the next thing we see in the north is that Assyria is going to destroy uh, Samaria in Israel. That's going to be the end of them. And then because now Assyria is in the north, right on the border of Judah, then they're just going to start in on Judah. But by the grace of God, God is going to preserve them. So, because right now in Israel, there's a whole bunch more kings to go. Anyway, because the last one we talked about here was Uzziah, I think. So, and then there's a whole bunch more. So, anyway, so that's our morning devotions. The morning devotions, I think, I look at that, 15 minutes. It's fundamentally to say that everything that God says is going to happen is going to happen. And you say, well, it's not happening right now, and I keep saying it doesn't matter. Don't gauge the will of God by your timetable. We're all just going back to dust. God has his own timetable, but his word is secure, it's sure, it's certain. All right. So he promised us all the way back in the Torah, through the writing of Moses, that this was going to happen. And here it is upon them. All right. So, well, I was going to, I better not, because if I start going through Deuteronomy, it might take me a bit to find that passage of Scripture. There's that whole chapter in regards to that. Maybe we'll look at it later. But that's it for this morning. So, the Lord bless you, and you have a great day. And Lord willing, I'll see everybody tomorrow. Okay, we'll see you. Bye.